Extremely toxic best friend story time. So when I was in 8th grade, there was this boy. And this boy would go around telling almost every girl that he liked her. And I was one of those girls. And he would do stuff with all of us. And there were like 11 of us. So we all hated each other. Especially this one girl, and we're gonna call her Abby. And every time we saw each other, we would be super mean to each other. Well, a year passed, we stopped talking to this kid. And I bumped into her at homecoming and basically apologized. So after that, we became best friends. And everything was good until every time I told her about a guy, she would start talking to them. Like this one boy that I was Snapchatting and talking to, she accidentally sent nudes to him and said, "Oh, sorry, I meant to send them to my boyfriend." So then she called one of my other best friends and said, "No, it actually wasn't an accident." And of course he told me because he was my best friend. So I was like, whatever, and stopped talking to the boy. And she did it again, like for part 2.
This is why you should never talk to strangers in an elevator. One day, a surgeon was working the night shift at a hospital. He just finished his operation on a patient and was going to the basement. He entered the elevator and there was one other woman already inside. They were casually chatting when the elevator door opened and another woman was about to enter. But the surgeon looked horrified. He quickly slammed the close button and punched the highest floor of the building. Surprised, the woman asked why he was being so rude and wouldn't let the other woman in the elevator with them. The surgeon explained that in this hospital, all patients wear white wristbands with their names printed on them, but the red wristbands are placed on all of the corpses. The surgeon then looks to the woman in the elevator with him and says, "That was the same woman I just operated on. She died on the operating table. Didn't you see the red wristband she was wearing?" The woman in the elevator with him just smiled, raised her arm, and said, "You mean like this one?"
My future mother-in-law is the absolute worst person I've ever met in my life. I'm 30 years old and my boyfriend is 31 and we've been together for 8 months. He's the sweetest and most caring man I've ever met in my life, but the biggest surprise is when I met his mother. I'm a natural redhead, so when we sat down for dinner, she asked me if my parents had the same color hair. And then she proceeds to ask me, does the carpet match the drapes? I looked over to my boyfriend who seemed equally as shocked, but he didn't say anything. And when I didn't respond back, she said, "Don't worry, I'll ask my son about it later." She then went on to attack my appearance and said my hair was too curly and I really needed to learn how to run a brush through my hair and think about my appearance more when I'm out with her son. And when I lost my appetite, she told me it was a good thing that I'm watching what I eat because it would be a shame if I got any bigger. This was my first meeting with this woman, and as soon as I got into my car, I burst into tears until I got home. I told my boyfriend I needed some time. He went into apology overload, and this started by sending me flowers to my office every day and leaving me messages. He said he spoke with his mom and promised this would never happen again. With this reassurance, I decided to give it another chance. When my daughter was born, she had dark skin and looked like her parents could be of African descent. My husband was furious and accused me of cheating and left right then and there. He told everyone on both sides of the family what happened and wanted a divorce. Then his friends and families all called me to say how upset they were and called me really nasty names. My mother was by my side the entire time as I kept professing my innocence. He refused to pick me up from the hospital, threw my stuff out on the lawn, and changed the locks. When my sister called to get the baby stuff, he texted her a picture of a bare nursery room and said he got rid of everything. He even destroyed my art studio. Eventually, he agreed to do a paternity test, and he was 100% the father. No one could believe this, so he did it again, and he was the dad. One of his cousins did the ancestry thing and found out there was 30% of African in their family. This made Jim's paternal great-grandmother admit to having an affair around the same time Jim's grandfather was born, and because he could pass as hers, she just assumed her husband was the father. Since then, he's been reaching out and everyone has come to apologize. I told him I needed time and he asked to see the baby, and I let him, but I'm too afraid to physically hand her to him. I've never cheated and have been 100% innocent all this time. Am I the asshole for not wanting to give him a second chance?
Story time about how my boss caught me hooking up with my coworker at work. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. A few years back, I was working at a really bougie restaurant on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. I was a host and all of the servers were super attractive. Everyone was either a model or an actress. I'd only been working there for a few months when this new guy got hired. Let's call him John. John was super attractive. Every single girl that worked at the restaurant was trying to find out if he was single or not. Well, it turns out he had a girlfriend. His girlfriend was super jealous. She was so jealous that she would actually come to the restaurant and sit in his section and just order food. She would stay for hours. One day, John and I had the opening shift. It was him, myself, and all of the kitchen staff. It was pretty slow, so we got to talking. He told me he was a model and he said that I was so beautiful that I should start modeling too. Well, that went straight up to my head. Once our shift ended, he asked me if I wanted to hang out, and of course I said yes. Then he grabbed my hand and took me to the back room. Suddenly, he closed the door and started kissing me. I was a little bit shocked, but I got into it. My manager walks in. Part 2 is
This is why you should be careful working in food delivery. When the pandemic hit, I lost my job and signed up to work for a food delivery app. I was making good money and the tips were nice too. During the first few months of working, I never had any weird experiences or customers. For the most part, everything was fine. There were times when I was a little scared of dropping off the food because it was in sketchy neighborhoods or it was dark outside, but nothing ever happened. I started feeling confident in my position and I let my guard down. One night, I got a delivery request and the tip was bigger than the total order. When I looked at the details of how to drop it off, I realized why the tip was so big. The instructions asked if I could open the door and bring it inside of the house as they were bedbound and unable to walk to the door. I knew I shouldn't do it. It was super against company policy, but I had an aunt who was bedbound and it hit a soft spot. When I opened the door of the house, I was hit with the most vile stench that's ever hit my nose. I looked around and called out to the customer. It was silent for a few seconds. Suddenly, someone croaked out, "I'm back here, come on down." The voice came from a bedroom down the hallway that was pitch black. As I walked towards the room, my stomach was turning. I entered the room and put the order down, but I didn't see anyone. When I turned around to leave, suddenly a man appeared in front of me.
This is why you should never go scuba diving in a big group. This is a picture of Tom and Eileen Lonergan, and on January 25th, 1998, they had no idea what was about to happen to them. They wanted the chance to scuba dive in the largest coral reef system in the world. So they set sail with 26 other people and went 25 miles away from the coast of Queensland, Australia, which was their original location. Tom and Eileen only thought they'd be going scuba diving for 40 minutes and they'd come back up and then they'd go back to their hotel. So after about 40 minutes, everybody boards the boat and they go back to Queensland. The next day, another group of divers go out to the same location and one of the divers found dive weights at the bottom of the ocean. They didn't think anything of it until they couldn't find Tom and Eileen. It had been 2 full days until anybody even noticed that they were gone. The people in the group with them just assumed they were out doing stuff or seeing Australia. People wanted to check on them to see if they were okay, so they went to the Lonergans' hotel room and sitting outside of their door was their luggage. And that is when everybody realized they left them behind because it had been 2 days and their luggage was untouched. Running out of time, but
have y'all heard about the David Dobrik situation? No? Well then let me catch you up on it. This is solely for educational purposes, no hate to anyone involved. What's your Instagram handle? By the way, this is a complicated one. Let's head back to 2017 when the Vlog Squad was doing prank videos. This was back in David Dobrik's old apartment, so it was a while ago. But the prank was being held against Seth, who believed he would be kissing Corinna under a scary face mask. The trick was, though, that it was Jason Nash under the face mask. He did not consent to kissing Jason Nash. He only consented to kissing a female. So this is where the first issue arises. For a good 30 to 40 seconds, he was forced to make out with Jason Nash and thought it was a woman. The Vlog Squad also knew that back home, gay men were not accepted. So they knew that there was a good chance he was going to be very uncomfortable with this and that it could cause issues in his future. However, they played the prank on him and he was uncomfortable, but Seth didn't say anything. Let's jump.
Well, I dated this guy for about 1.5 years. I knew him for 8 years before that. He was actually my teacher at university. But don't worry, we dated way after I graduated. I'm even a little bit older than him. Artsy, cute, nerdy, what can go wrong? Well, we could only hang out after 7 p.m. and there were only specific days that we could hang out. Yes, I know, red flags, I was stupid. But the time we had together was amazing. So I decided to turn a blind eye. This guy, with no shame at all, hangs out with other girls and posts them all over his social media. He refused to call me his girlfriend, but I was the love of his life, the most beautiful girl he's ever been with. I even went to his family functions. So basically, I was a girlfriend at convenience. So I started.
Story of the time a cop went in my car without my permission. So for a while, I was going to people's houses to do their nails. And I would do this in the summer, so a lot of my clients set up a table outside so that the smell didn't smell up their house too bad. I always feel rude to park in the person's driveway, so I usually park outside of their house on the side of the road. And this time in particular, I did just that, and we did her nails outside as well. At the time, my car had temp plates on it because I had just recently got it. And also, my car is a BMW 2-door with all tinted windows, so you cannot see inside of it even if you tried. So I could understand why it looks a little bit suspicious. Luckily for me, my nail client's dog ended up running out of the fence into the front yard, right near my car. So I go with her to chase him, and I see the police officer opening up my car door. And I wasn't parked illegally or anything, and my temp plates weren't expired either. So he had no right to be opening up my car doors. So I ran over to my car and I was like, "What's going on? Why are you searching my car?" And he was like, "This is your car?"
Story time about how I almost died when I was 4 years old. So my mom was at work and my dad and I were at home. And my dad was watching TV while I was trying to do headstands. I don't know, guys. I thought I was an acrobat at the time. So anyways, I had a penny in my mouth. I know, it's super dirty, don't come at me, I was 4, I didn't know. And my dad didn't know. And every time that I would do these headstands, I would roll over onto my back. Well, I rolled over and I started choking. And my dad looks over and I'm laying on the floor literally like freaking dying. He's freaking the hell out. So he calls 911 and I got rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. And the penny was sticking straight up at the time, so nobody was really worried about getting it out right then and there. And my throat was like holding that penny in place, so no, my dad couldn't do the Heimlich or whatever the heck it's called. Well, the penny flipped. And I stopped breathing and everybody was freaking out and they had to hurry up and get it out before I died.
Once there was a girl named Jenny. She was like all the other girls except for one thing. She always wore a green ribbon around her neck. There was a boy named Alfred in her class. Alfred liked Jenny and Jenny liked Alfred. One day he asked her, "Why do you wear that ribbon all the time?" "I cannot tell you," said Jenny. But Alfred kept asking, "Why do you wear it?" And Jenny would say, "It's not important." Jenny and Alfred grew up and fell in love. One day they got married. After their wedding, Alfred said, "Now that we're married, you must tell me why you have that green ribbon." "You must wait," said Jenny. "I will tell you when the right time comes." Years passed. Alfred and Jenny grew old. One day, Jenny became very sick. The doctor told her that she was dying. Jenny called Alfred to her side and said, "Now I can tell you about the green ribbon." She told him to untie it so he could see why. And Jenny's head fell off.
So this couple comes in together to buy an engagement ring, and they had a budget of about $20,000, which is a lot for an engagement ring. But the ring that she happened to pick out was about $35,000, which is a lot of money. And she was really adamant about picking it, and he was kind of reserved, like, it is a lot of money. But she's like, "No, if you love me, you'll buy it, yada, yada, yada." And he's like, "You know what? You're gonna be my wife, the mother of my kids, whatever makes you happy." So after they finally decide, I pack it up for them. I'm like, "Here you go. Have a great marriage. Have a great life. Goodbye." About 3 weeks later, the fiance comes in, and I'm thinking she just wants to get the ring size or something. And she's like, "Can you guys take out the diamond and replace it with a cubic zirconium?" Cubic zirconium is a very cheap substitute for a diamond. So I was like, yeah, we can do that, but just give us 2 or 3 days. So she leaves, and I call her fiance because I was like, this is really suspicious. And he had no idea that she came into the shop or that she was coming in. So he calls me 2 days later, and he finds out that she was going to break up with him. She would have kept that diamond, and she would have given him the fake one. He would have returned it, and he would have gotten no money back. Talk about mess.